Yep.
Okay, at 6 o'clock, I will call the monthly meeting of the Village Board of Trustees for Sister Bay to order. Roll call.
Bell,
Here,
Warner, here, Orozco, here, Champeau, here, Berto, here, Cox,
Here.
and Sarah is excused.
get a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Roscoe, second by Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the meeting minutes from October 17th and November 2nd.
On October 17th, I have a couple corrections. Page 3, line 16. It says Lori Harp instead of Laurel. On page 5, I would like a sentence added that Berto voted no at the finance meeting. Page 7, line 41. Demo question and from last Parks meeting. I don't know where that sentence belongs. That's all I had on that. Do you want me to do November 7th also? Correct.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's take a moment.
Page 12. I was not absent. I told 3 people I would not be at that meeting. Page 14, line 7. Just a typo, the word "the" needs to be added. Expressed his surprise at the level of capital investment. That's all I have.
Any other additions, deletions, corrections? Okay. Let's, we propose both as one, or do you want to do it separately?
It's your choice.
We'll just do both of those minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cox, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public? You do have that on page 21 and the 31.
So in the packet was the Moody's Investor Service Credit Opinion for the village. I don't quite understand the ratings, but the village has improved to a capital A, lowercase a, number 3 from a capital A1. But then there was also an email from Christy Raymond, who owns a short-term rental here in the village, with concerns regarding the requirements in the new application.
Can I ask Tasha a question about the Moody's?
I was gonna ask her if she had anything to add.
So on page 23, Tasha, and it talks about that first graph, economy, exhibit 2, resident income. And it says medium household income, and then the resident income ratio, which goes down, and then a short blue line, a median resident income ratio. I guess I don't understand what that really means.
Those are, it's data that Moody's retains on their own. So I honestly, I can't tell you much more than what it's showing you is the median household income. I can't refute it. I can't do anything with it because it's their data.
Okay. I mean, it shows like our median household is going drastically down. Okay,
No. On page 23.
yeah,
No, actually, it shows the income going up.
Oh.
It's the income ratio, and I think the definition we need is what the income ratio is made up of. That I don't know, but the green bars are the income, and that's
right, but then the blue line is the resident income.
Right,
which shows.
rate, not income, but the ratio
Race
percent.
ratio,
And that's what I don't know what the math is for the ratio percent.
right,
Okay.
and there is no explanation in here as to what the math is, so it doesn't.
That doesn't make sense because obviously it's, you can't get to zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
My guess is they don't have data for that year.
okay. Thank you, anyway.
Anything else you want to add to that, Tasha? I mean, that's kind of your boss.
Yeah, the good news and the important news is that, we are moving up, we are improving. It was a very good call with Moody's and with our advisors from Baird. They see a lot of positives, as it states in here, obviously our continuing things to watch out for are that we're very tourist heavy. And that, you know, our resident income is fairly low. So, that's what they're looking for, but in general, the village's financial health is in good shape and has improved remarkably. We were downgraded to the rating we were at previously, back in 2018, I believe. So it takes some years to bring it back up. So,
What precipitated the downgrade in 2018?
the amount of debt that the village had, that the TIF was not doing well and was not producing adequate increment compared to the amount of debt and the amount of project costs that the TIF had. A number of financial factors.
How much of a real world impact will this have, like on interest rates for any future?
We were probably looking at sometimes 0.25%. Because we have gone from, we've moved up to high grade. And we were at moderate high, so
Is there any other impact this is gonna have for us, positive or otherwise?
it's mostly gonna have an impact on your bond. Yep. More people will look at us, more investors will look at us, more banks will look at us favorably. Want to invest in our projects, want to invest in the village, so.
And we needed I guess that's still in a public correspondence. Okay. Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Yes.
Hi, I'm Dean Hoger from Clean Water Action Council. You may recognize the name Clean Water Action Council and my name. We sent information to you a bunch of times about coal tar pavement sealants and encourage the town to consider doing what Jacksonport, the town of Jacksonport, and also the town of Gibraltar has done, and that's to pass a ban against the product. So you probably know a lot about why this is a hazardous product and shouldn't be put on pavement where it wears off and can get into homes where children can be exposed to it, where it can get into waterways and create hazards there. So I probably don't have to tell you a lot about that. Maybe what I need to tell you about is why the town should ban it. Why has Gibraltar banned it? Yes, Gibraltar and Jacksonport. It's because the state is not taking action on this. And Representative Joel Kitchens has encouraged us, Clean Water Action Council, to go out and do these presentations and get towns to take action because the state is not going to do that. Now, some towns think that it's not going to be used up here, but we have we have a sealing company who does a lot of work up here, who says there are out of town companies that come up and use this product, have used this product. And in fact, at the state level, when it came before the Senate Committee on Transportation Committee, at least 5 sealing companies said they would go out of business if this product was banned. So it is being used in the state and it could be used up here. So you have a lot of pavement up here. You have a lot of housing next to pavement. So it is a hazard. You should consider banning it. Do you recognize this? These were sent to all of you once before. And I would encourage you to consider doing this. And if you want a full presentation, which we've been offering, we'd be happy to come up and do a 15-minute presentation on this topic. We also have on our website at Clean Water Action Council, we have a pretty detailed video in which Joel Kitchens is speaking about this. A nurse is speaking, a biologist is speaking about it, as well as owner of a seal coat company. So it's on our website, cleanwateractioncouncil.org. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have at this time. Does anyone want another copy?
I have one.
Okay.
I have a question. Why is the state not banning it?
This-
Why won't they?
Because it couldn't get out of the transportation committee. It went before the committee decided not to move it forward to the legislature. Once before, it was almost passed in the assembly. And Joel Kitchens was sure it was gonna pass. And what happened was COVID came and it shut everything down. And the last time at the Senate committee, he and Rob Coles thought it was gonna pass, no problem. And they were shocked to see that the chemical industry had brought all these people in to talk about going out of business. Now, they haven't had it in Minnesota for at least 10 years. And there are like over a dozen seal coat companies right in the Twin Cities. So people don't go out of business, they just use other products. Anyone need a copy or question?
No, hi Dean, I went
Hi.
to your Unitarian presentation
Yes,
and I
I
have
thought you
been
would.
pushing for this and we did talk about it a couple months ago. And I think one question that came up is, I think we needed to put into the wording what is acceptable. And so it got sent back to Green Tier to talk about what, do you have ideas of what we can put in that people can use? I think that was where we had our hang up, right?
Right, it went back to the Green Tier Legacy Committee, but they have not met since then to finish working.
Okay.
But they needed to know what the acceptable products were, so we can put something in the ordinance.
Okay, well, the basic product is asphalt pavement sealant. That covers a lot of it. H is very low. Polycyclic is very low. Another product is latex, and that's also a commonly used product. Hardly, right now at the big box stores, Walmart, Kmart, some of those big box stores, they don't sell this product anymore. The only place we found it was on the Ace online store. You could still buy a cold pavement sealant product. So it's really not like what do you use instead. It just don't use coal tar pavement sealant. There are some other, and this is why the Gibraltar and the Jacksonport ordinance said and other high PAH products, because there are products in the works. We got a telephone call from an organization, national organization out of Austin. And they said, just be aware that there's new products being developed from plastic waste that is high in PAH. So that's why that ordinance that they wrote, those two, actually every ordinance that's been written all along the lake shore, from Racine all the way up to Manitowoc, Algoma, they all have that phrase and other high pH, and they spell it out with a certain percentage. It's in there like 0.05 or something like that. So really the question isn't what alternatives, it's asphalt pavement sealants or latex, which is more expensive.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Does anyone need a copy? No? Okay, thank you. Oh, I just add one more thing. If you don't pass the ban, publicize the fact that property owners shouldn't use the coal tar pavement sealant. At least publicize that and make people aware of that. Okay, thank you.
Amazing.
I'm a resident and you're talking about something, no, I haven't.
Okay.
I live in the Crow's Nest and I moved in 4 years ago. And they put some product on all the highways because we own the highways or the drives in the development. And the water softened it up and we had it all over the garage. The car drove in and we track it in the building. Now it's sort of washed away now. So it's not an issue today. But be careful what you get.
Can I get your name and address?
Name is Roger Oakdale. And the address is 10687 Commodore Circle.
Thank you.
I live right near the development.
Sure, I'm just trying to make Heidi's job easier because she's got.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to make Heidi's job easier because she's got to keep track of who speaks.
Yeah, just go careful, because they did a lot of research and they put something on which was garbage.
Would anybody else out there like to speak on a non-agenda item? Let's move on to county supervisor reports. Dave.
Dave is not on.
Okay. So there is no Dave, so we will go on to 7A, and I'm going to go step on the audience for this and have this go.
Okay, so, the first one we have is, resolution number 2023 02020 or 022, authorizing and approving the application for and borrowing of $3.3 million from the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands of Wisconsin State Trust Fund Loan Program for the purpose of financing the broadband project. Tasha, do you want to lead us in there?
Yes. So this financing has been discussed a number of times. This is the initial financing, or what I kind of liken to a construction financing, where we draw as we go. So that we're paying as low of interest as possible, going through the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands. We're looking at $3.3 million at 6.25% for a term of 5 years. Again, since this is initial financing, we would refinance this probably before that first interest payment even occurs and bring it into final financing. So I'm asking that you approve the resolution. It's the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands resolution, so it doesn't look like our normal resolutions. And the application for this financing. Any questions?
We just need one motion.
One motion for both is fine.
Okay, make motion to approve the application for farm.
I second the motion.
Julie, you want to say all
All
in
those
favor?
in favor? Sorry, I forgot my job here.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Be a terrible village president.
Okay, on to 7B. Usually,
Yep, so this is the resolution number 2023-023, dismiss deferred assessments for 2 parcels. As the staff report explained, years ago, we did some deferred assessments for swim and water projects. And as the properties were developed or split, we were supposed to collect on those. That didn't happen on 2 parcels. You can see the date of them, they're pretty old. There's no way to collect the funds right now, so we do need the board to adopt a resolution to actually dismiss those deferred assessments and take them off of the collection.
motion by Warner,
Second.
second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 8A. Development agreement with trade contractor establishment on Highway 42, 2613 South Bay Shore Drive.
Okay, so Wolf Brothers is gonna be building a new building. The plan commission did approve a development agreement for Wolf Brothers. Last night when we looked at it, we did have some typos, so I just want to bring them to your attention. They don't, impact the content of it at all. One is, Mr. Wolf is often referred to as Cap. His real name is Thomas, so we made sure Thomas was put into the actual agreement that will be signed. And then the plan commission also, wanted it very clear that, he is to use the warm soft white bulbs and the outside lighting does not exceed 3,000 K. The draft agreement that you had received said 3,000 lumens. So we did correct that. Other than that, there were no other changes to that draft, to that development agreement. And it was unanimous at the plan commission to move that forward and approve it.
So moved it.
Can I ask a question? Is that, I know,
This is,
Oh, I'm
don't
sorry.
believe this is the time to take.
You'll have to wait till we have a motion and a second on it, and then we can open it up for discussion before we actually vote.
So those are by Cox,
Second.
second by Roscoe.
Now you can.
is this the development? I know the low cost apartments that are near the child care center and on behind the pig. Is this for that other parcel that's across the street from that?
This is right on Highway 42. Next to the mobile station.
Oh,
Next to
that's,
Lambert's.
that's way down.
Lambert's, I'm sorry, the Lamp, yes,
Okay,
I'm sorry, I'm thinking Beacon Marine, I dealt with, they had a issue today. It's next to the former Lampert store.
is it of the same style that development was that I'm referring to? It just completed.
I would say the style is more similar to the Beacon Marine project that's going up, wouldn't you? It's more of a,
And this is not apartments, it's just a
Swope Brothers.
sales
Wolf
office.
Brothers. The
Okay.
business. It's a trading
The
contract,
reason-
it's like
I tried to get online, but I couldn't for some reason. But the reason I'm here is that just a week ago, I took a tour of that development. And some things were really nice. Garage was right next to the unit, an indoor garage. And I'm sure the units inside were very nice. But the planning, just so you know, is the planning, the organization on the property is very poor. And it will be a slum in a few years.
I think you're not talking about the agenda item here. So we're talking about.
I know, but I'm
Just
just
that would have.
giving my piece.
He could have spoken about that before.
And I need to get involved with the planning
I
department.
would encourage you to pay attention to the plan commission agenda, because that's where you could, that these items.
Yeah.
So that's.
Okay, sorry to interrupt,
Okay,
but we're just a little village, so
Okay.
maybe it's okay.
all right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. On to the development agreement for coming of age.
Okay, so Coming of Age in Sister Bay LLC, is behind, kind of kitty corner behind NWTC. It's on Sister Bluff Road, if you're familiar where I'm talking about.
Behind the silver birch.
Silver Birch gift shop.
Yeah.
And the plan commission reviewed this too. We did have two typos, which we had corrected, they were minor, but the plan commission did change, one of the items that you have before you. Basically on page 2 of the agreement, number I. It said, the property is not approved for use as a short-term rental. A rental stay shall be in excess of 30 days. When they met last night, they actually revised that to read as follows. As of the date of the signing of this development agreement, the property is not approved for use as a short-term rental. All rental stays shall be in excess of 30 days. If in the future, the homeowners association, if established, requests approval to operate a short-term rental, the request may be reviewed by the planning commission, provided the request meets the requirements of the municipal code. Nothing in this agreement shall be construed as an approval to operate a short-term rental in the subject property.
That was also gonna be unanimous by there was a condition added there. It was unanimous by the homeowners. or the-
Unanimous by the homeowners.
The condo owners association.
Yes.
What homeowners association?
So this is gonna be a condo owner,
Yeah.
there'll be a condo association there.
So it's a brand new condo.
Yes, so all of those,
Got
and
Yep.
the reason for that is we don't wanna have 3 people that wanna do it and get the village involved.
So, when we did discuss it last night, the applicants who are here, they did agree with that. They had really, they wanted to have short-term rentals there, and that was the, agreement that we had reached on this. Everything else, the other conditions that you see within the agreement are all the same. And, so the plan commission had recommended approval.
I guess, so This year, when we talked about STRs in depth. And then we had different areas of the village that had different rules, you know, we try to consolidate all the rules so that we all have a similar approach to STRs, all the districts, right? By including, I'm not for or against this, I'm just saying by including this, do we risk then sitting together in a couple more years, having different rules for different areas of the village again, that we then have to correct with one broad
I don't think,
STR policy, you know what I mean?
so this is
Did I explain
simply
that?
acknowledging that if they change and they wanna come back, they can come back if the rules change. It's not really saying that much. I mean, like, the rules could change whether we put this in there or not, that we could fragment them again if a future board decides to do that. It's possible. This doesn't make that any more or less likely.
Can I just add, so currently, the code says if you are in R2, you are treated different. The code says if you are in R2, you can only have a short-term rental if approved by development agreement or your homeowners association.
Okay.
So this is just clarifying
Sure, that's good.
if they agree. you can.
Yeah.
The plan commission does not want them to have it. There is, even though we came up with verbiage last night to appease the developers. We talked a lot about and have tried to make strides where we are just inundated. And personally, I'd rather not have 4 new units in the village that are going to be STRs. I find that it brings no value to our community. They wanted to have options moving forward, and so this wording, we can.
And right now, I don't believe it meets the requirements. There's not parking there. There's, as it stands
I
right.
just, it was just a question just to see if this was putting. Putting, rules in place in areas of the village, which we just went through to make one cohesive plan or.
Right,
kind of a-
R2 is
that was-
always gonna be
yeah,
treated
that's fine,
different,
yes, perfect.
rather than a single family
Yep.
home.
So moved, oh, sorry.
Oh, could you just please, recap what the change was?
Sure.
I was looking for the page and I.
Page 7, it seems like it's page 71.
71? Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking.
And I.
It's still-
Yeah.
So you're saying that right now there would be no short-term rentals, but later by unanimous approval of their board, they're 50, they could bring it to.
They could ask the plan commission to review it at that time if they were code compliant. And the plan commission would have another discussion at that time.
Motion to.
Any further discussion first? Questions?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, so moved.
okay, motion by Cox,
Second.
second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Have a good night, Jared. Okay. 8C, 2024 fee schedule.
Okay, so annually we look at our fee schedule, the board reviews it. If we're okay with this, then we'll create a resolution and it'll go to the board next month for adoption. And then it'll be effective January 1st. So I just want to share with you the changes that staff put in here. Certainly we can discuss anything in here, but so this would be effective on January 1st. And on the first page of it, which is page 93 in your packet, you'll see a change at the bottom for fee in lieu of parking. It says $3,000 per space per year. That's not how the code is written, so that would be changed to say $3,000 per land use change to make it consistent with the code.
And what exactly does that mean?
Fee in lieu of parking. So.
Well, I understand that, but what does per land use change mean? Is it still per
So-
space or is it?
So what it is, let's say, for example, that you had fees in lieu of parking because you were a retail store. And now you wanted to change to a deli, which probably required more parking. So it has to be reevaluated, it has to be looked at again. So it'd be, whenever there's a land use change, it gets reevaluated, and if granted, it'd be $3,000. So as long as you continue to operate as retail, if that's what you were approved as, and you continue to operate that way, there's no change. But if you go to change it, that triggers a new review.
This is a tool the plan commission had, and it's not the tool that we thought it was, to be honest. And I think we are like, I believe we're very likely to review this, because I think what we had envisioned for parking years ago was an annual thing, where if somebody didn't have parking, they could contribute to the village, and the village provides parking. So they could use those funds to have a pool of parking.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
But this is, I think this is more reflecting the reality of how the code was actually written, not how.
Correct, yeah, right, because the code says, the code doesn't say it's every year, it says it's a one-time.
Okay,
But our fee schedule said it was every year.
So what I believe would happen then is, if the plan commission changes that, then this would likely want to change this as well.
okay.
Right, and I think when we have that conversation, all of us can remember on plan commission that we should talk about the maximum spaces that you can have in fee in lieu of parking. You can't have 50 spaces short and pay that
That
and
sounds
call
like a
it good.
great
Right.
conversation to have when that comes up.
Okay, so let me keep going. On page 98. One thing we've noticed, your land division code talks about violations and how you can issue citations. But it didn't include it in chapter 54, so you have to cover it then in your resolution with your fee schedule, so that was added there. You'll see we added negligent or willful septic discharge. Every once in a while you'll encounter somebody who dumps their sewage out on the ground. We have no fine to give them, we have no mechanism for that, so this adds a fee for that, a fine for that. Keep going down, like under licenses and miscellaneous fees, you'll see initial issuance fee, reserve liquor licenses. And you'll also see the liquor license publication fee. We just went through all of this with the liquor license ordinance, but we had to put the fee in the schedule. So that's where that is.
I'm sorry, there is still that $10,000 in the line above. I didn't see that. That has to be deleted. That 300 seat class B liquor license,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
that has to be $20,000 or struck.
And then page 100. These are the changes that came out of the Marina Committee. So they had raised seasonal slips a little bit, transient dockage, and the commercial vendor fees. I will say there was no controversy on the seasonal slip or the transient dockage. There was, it was a little controversial on the commercial vendor fee.
May I? Okay.
Sure.
Thanks. Yeah, so I had heard the committee had done this. I was excused. I was out of the area on business. Thinking that this was going to be a late fall marina meeting, which usually nothing really happens of consequence. During my absence, though, there was a discussion around the commercial vendor fees, and the committee, after talking through it, added a 10% increase. So I started looking into last year when we signed the contracts with the vendors. And in talking with Dave, I found out that in 2019 is when the letter was proposed for the new fees, and they were 161 per linear foot. Now they're paying 225 on the contracted rates we gave them, which is a 40% increase over what they were given in 19. So last year they were, well, we contracted, and the committee didn't know this. This was all data that just we should always have all the best data available when we're making decisions like that. So they were already giving a significant increase. For that increase, we signed a 3-year agreement with 2 optional years, so a 5-year contract, so they can invest in equipment. Having a 10% increase on top of what they were given last year, I think is overkill. So I'd like this actually to go back to Marina Committee in December, so we can discuss it again with the new data that we have. And I'd ask for the board's approval to do that and to remove that 10% fee, so we can talk about a more reasonable fee based on what we know now of what they got last year with their contracts. So,
But you're okay with the other?
Yeah. yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
As a
Just
member of the
yeah.
Marina Committee, also I was there and Dave had recommended a 3% increase,
Yeah.
which seemed much more reasonable.
Yeah, 10%.
So this I thought was a little
Yeah.
just thrown in there because maybe our chair wasn't there.
So,
But did you vote for
I
it?
voted against it.
Okay,
I was pretty adamant against it.
so it was a split decision between the Marina Committee?
It was 2 people, 2 committee
3
members.
to 1.
Yeah,
I would
3 to
think
1.
so. Yeah, there's some passion on occasion that maybe we do or do not need commercial vendors at the marina. That's part of the reason sometimes these things get taken to that level. So I'd like to at least be present, commit to my meeting in December, at least have the discussions about the real numbers, and we'll probably come up with a more reasonable a discussion with our commercial vendors for an increase in.
I think that's a good idea. I'm on that committee. And having more information is a good idea. I do think that it should be increased, maybe not to 10%.
Yeah.
There should be an increase to the commercial vendors. I am not against the commercial vendors in any
Yeah.
way, shape or form. I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah.
They're great for Sister Bay.
Yeah.
They do us a lot of good, so.
procedure question. How would this work? Do we just take and put the old numbers in there because we need to publish this before the next meeting, or can we get that from Marina before the December board?
So I believe that the Marine Committee is gonna meet before we have to prepare the next packet. So after they meet, then we'll add
Right.
that, yeah, so then we'll add that into the resolution. That'll go to the board. So if there's no other changes than what we talked about here,
Yeah.
that's how the resolution will look with the, whatever comes out of the meeting.
Don, let's just say worst case, Marina Committee doesn't meet, could we put a 3% on there if you guys don't, and then have that?
I believe that was the recommendation
Yeah.
of Dave, and I think everybody would follow Dave's lead on this based on this information. I talked to him today about the data, and so, yeah.
I'd really rather,
Yeah,
my
that's-
preference would be to have the Marina
Yeah.
Committee review, but just saying if not.
If we're allowed to do that, I think that's okay.
Sure you can, and this isn't one that requires, like a 2-week public hearing.
No.
It's a resolution, so we can, as long as we can get that finalized the week before the meeting. We'll work.
The good news is there were also very well published to the vendors and all the users of the vendors and the tourists and the locals who, and there was no issues this year, so. That's good. It's all right there. I could save it for the Marina Committee notes at the end, but it was very nice to see. So everybody behaved.
Did you have more, Julie?
No, that was it.
Okay. So we got into after Plan Commission meeting last night. Talking about the one of the people that was on our agenda last night, and that we have been dealing with them for over a year. Basically under one application, one $200, or did they get a different fee?
The one that we had last night was actually paid the site plan review fee. But we started talking about another contractor that we deal with quite a bit. You're right, we talked about another contractor we deal with quite a bit. The fee is $200 for a house, and you spend a lot of time, like, you don't get the plan or there's violations and you just keep going out there. And I was telling Denise, I'm like, $200 does not cover our time on some of these.
And when they're constantly resubmitting and the developer or the owner, whoever it is, continues to tweak the site plan, Julie is thorough enough that she checks everything all again. And so I think that we should have something in here that, if you have to resubmit, then, first of all, I think $200 is not enough.
So which fee is this, which $200?
So I think it would be, if I understand.
Standard
correct-
zoning permit on page 93.
Okay.
Which would be for a residential home. I believe that should be $500. And if they have to, if not because of the village, but they decide to change something, and they have to resubmit, I think a second submittal is also $500, because Julie and staff have to spend the same amount of time checking all the setbacks, looking at the criteria, making sure that something, they're telling you one thing, but the site plan says something else and just needs to be reviewed. And I think for the third time, it's the same thing. Another $500. I think it can be the same fee, but it's all the same amount of work. It doesn't have to, like a violation get bigger each time. So I would recommend that.
I guess some thoughts I have on that. We're increasing the, or that's going to be, we're going to make a housing unit more expensive. That's something yes, there's good reasons to do it. And I understand exactly what you're saying, because I've seen those people come back and back, and I absolutely get that. What I'm wondering is, we charge a different amount based on the size for inspections. I mean, does a smaller footprint, can we do something like that?
No,
No.
because it's all the same criteria that you have to, that you're looking for in a site plan.
I'll give you, for
Yeah.
example, if you're gonna submit for a house, what I'm gonna do is, first thing I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna check your building. Are you meeting minimum floor area requirements? Do you have walls that exceed 50 feet in width? What is your height? I wanna check your garage, is it set back is it offset? Is it a side setback? Are you meeting the setbacks? What is your vegetation? What is your open space requirements? What is the width of your driveway? Do you have a tree every 30 feet or every 40 feet, depending on the zone you're in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if I ask you to change something, that's on me, you shouldn't pay again, but you're like, no, I decided I'm gonna add a second floor now. Well, you should have had that put together before you applied, because now I'm doing all of that work over again. So,
I guess one question I would ask would be first of all, this is very common in the world of business, right? If you go back on your plans with a customer, they know that there's gonna be
change orders.
some different fees associated with doing something different on your project. Fine. What do other communities in our area that we might, how to use the word, compete with, or wanting to have people build in our village versus build in Liberty Grove versus build in wherever else? Do we know what they do? Do they charge an additional fee every time? Or, I'm asking a question. If we don't know, that's
the
okay.
answer to that, because I've done this my whole life. They have usually major cities, and that's all I've worked in, have a processing fee when you come across the counter of some nominal amount. But then the reviewer should charge by the hour.
My question is, do we know, could we find out from the staff, if local communities, what they do? So we at least are competitive. And then we can decide once we find out, I'm not against it, but I just like to know. I just don't have any idea.
And that's gonna be the county pretty much surrounding us, isn't it?
Well, some of the municipalities do it too, so some of them we do know already, they'll just deny it. Okay, I'm gonna deny this when you start over,
And they don't
So-
charge again, they just sort of,
No, they do charge.
Oh, they do charge,
So you
okay.
apply again.
all right.
So, I've always been, if it's a minor revision.
Yeah.
Something I can easily handle, I don't,
Yeah.
but we've had some pretty big ones that. Especially that have come here, that have required a lot of review time.
And I understand your point, Nate, but $300 for the person who's not gonna come back 6 times. is not, in the world that we live in of, land values, construction prices, $300 is not going to make a difference of somebody building a house. And unfortunately, the people that we're trying to target aren't building the houses anyway.
I understand, but I guess in my head, I'm just thinking like if it's less than 1,250 square feet, that's where my head was at. That's not, I
It's
understand.
still all the
300
same criteria, doesn't matter the size of the house.
It is, but I'm gonna suspect that there's a lot. Isn't there less review? Or you're just saying because it's land use, it's the same thing no matter what?
If you have a smaller house, it's probably on a smaller lot, which means, again, I'm looking at the same things, it's just different numbers, you're like.
So,
I would say this, though, with the smaller house, you're less inclined to make changes. It's the larger homes, especially ones on the water perhaps, where now they decide they want a dormer or a second story. It tends to be the larger homes that make the revision.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, do you see a tendency between someone building a smaller home versus a larger home?
Yeah, I do.
How much?
I do. It's, I was talking to Seth today, it's make up your mind and then apply, because it just saves them time, because if everything's packaged and we can zip through it, I can give them a review and get them a permit quicker. But then so many times it's like, well, I was thinking about it. I think I want to add, an addition off the side and then you also have applications sometimes that sit there a year waiting for somebody to get back to you. At what point do you just say, we're closing the file,
You gotta read that.
you have to reapply? And those are things we'll work through with our ordinance. We're looking at our administration section, so how long do you hold something open after somebody submits an application? That's all stuff we have to talk about at the planning commission level, but I can certainly add this into the resolution and we can look at it, and if there's concerns, we can, change that, but I think it would help cover the taxpayers paying for somebody who's not ready to even apply.
so let's say there's some sort of development in the village where we set aside land parcels and that. Is there a way we could do this en masse so that the people that say like out of the multi property wouldn't incur that fee? If we were to do a pre-approval of sorts, is that something? That's really where my head is going to, is what can we do to make it, and yes, $300 is only $300, but it's still $300 less than everything we could do to make it affordable for those. Something.
But I think what you're gonna see at the Wiltsey property is we will probably be taking out the permits.
Okay.
And that actually I have to discuss with Denise for our next agenda. I have it on my draft plan commission agenda, discuss fees for village owned parcels. So, cause that, while you're doing is you're taking it out of this side of the books and you're putting it on this side of the books. When we're charging ourselves for something.
So the other question that I had on page 98. So parking citations, there's a first offense, there's a second offense. And then nuisance code violations, first offense, second offense. Why do we not have second and third offenses for zoning violations?
I do not know.
I think that we should have, especially zoning violations, a second and third offense that they just keep doubling.
Yeah, our code doesn't address that. I mean, if we put that in here, we'd wanna also make the code reflect that too.
The chicken and the egg question, do we change the code or do we change this first? If you wanted
You
to.
would change this first. Because this is gonna trump that anyway.
And Denise, is there an example of a zoning violation? What would be a zoning violation?
Oh, I can give you an example.
Okay, go ahead.
I had a guy who built two decks and the trees, and I wrote him and I said, I went out there and met with the builder and he's like, oh, we're not doing anything, we're not doing anything. Well, they did, they rebuilt a balcony, they built the deck, they cut some trees down. And so I, told him, well, you need permits for this, this, and this. Well, the contractor never applied for anything, so finally we issued a citation to the owner. And he called, he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I will apply for those permits right away. That was in July. And we never got any. And we're like, hey, here we go again. You've got the neighbors calling and complaining, you've got a file open, you know, so. You just keep giving them the same citation. I mean, sometimes they just ignore you. And in that situation, we should have given them a second citation fee, like an elevated, like, we are serious, you need to get this permit. He did apply this week.
5 months is a little long to wait.
Yeah, it was July when we first rolled in.
And then just a typo on page 100 under miscellaneous. I don't think the marina sells 75-pound bags of ice.
That's 7.5. Back to page 98 though, so did you want a first and second zoning violation breakdown in there?
I think that would be extremely helpful because your staff is still dealing with this.
I assume that means for the same violation that was unaddressed, or would it, if there's a different violation entirely, does that go back to being a first offense? Okay.
And we don't have many zoning violations, we try to resolve those, most of them are pretty easy and people are fine with it.
I guess the question I have for you, Julie, is there anything in here you see that you don't think covers the village's expense as far as fees?
No, I really don't. So we looked at this last year, you know, we went through and did a pretty good review last year and thought we covered all of our fees. So I think it's pretty good. The reason why you look at it periodically is because there is stuff that comes up, and this happened to be a year of indecisiveness, you know? So it's one where you're like, you know, we should really look at that and try and deter that and get people to get their thoughts together before they apply. I think everything in here is pretty accurate. I had talked with, you know, Brett Gillett, the building inspector. I talked to the commercial plan reviewer, and they felt they were spot on. They had no changes. So overall, I think it really does a good job covering that. I never have thought your license fees covered it, but you know, there's not much we can do about some of those, so.
Or those set by the state?
I'm sorry, I'm busy typing.
Your license fees and all the liquor license ones.
There are guidelines that we have to stay within, yes. So we're pretty much at the maximum for all of them right now.
The same with the dog licenses.
With dog licenses, we can set whatever fee we want. We are higher than most of the state of Wisconsin, but I don't know how high you want to go on those.
What did the state says you have to do it? I remember there was some hook with the state, because I was wondering, well, why are we even trying to
So
get $10? It's not.
the state's
money.
fee is essentially it's $3. We keep a quarter of it and $2.75 goes to the county. That's what the license fee is. Anything above that, you're keeping for your municipality.
Okay.
So we increased it a couple years ago. Just because of the time it takes to process those applications, but we still are not seeing nearly the number of people applying for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if the board wants any further action taken to get people to license their dogs.
I think if we raise fees, that's just gonna cause less people to do it, so,
Right.
and you're talking, what my thought process is, if we're spending staff time, if we're not charging enough to cover staff time, we're actually losing money on that, but in this case, okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, what's a dog license for? Does it do?
You're
what's the purpose
registering
of
your
it?
dog and verifying that he has his shots so that there's no risk of transmitting rabies if it bites someone. You do have to have you do have to have a rabies shot before you can use our dog park. I don't know how many people abide by that.
Okay.
Same
I know our
with
fees
the
for-
licenses.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or if your dog runs away, we find it. We
Yeah,
look it up
that's
by
right.
its tag number.
Chipping it.
Any more discussion on that? We're just looking for a recommendation for next month.
I think I have a pretty good direction on that. I'll bring it back next month as a resolution.
Thank you.
All right. Then on to 8E. Accept data entangling Clark Smith Foundation grant.
We're gonna do the Mill Road construction bid.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I jumped over it.
Dan is online if you need him for anything.
Okay. so, we have the bid to do Mill Road from 42 west to the bluff. And you see the bids here. This went to the Parks, Property and Streets Committee. And the recommendation to you on which one you accept. State law does require you to accept the lower one unless there's some issue with it, so you don't really have much of a choice on that one. So we would want you to accept this, and I just have to let you know, there are other things associated with the project that have to come forward. For example, the lighting, WPS is a separate cost to run lights and stuff, but this is the actual construction, digging up the road, pouring the concrete, gravel, etc. So
Okay.
we do need that so we can get going on the project. though.
That is direly needed. This
Yes.
Mill Road, full of potholes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Berto, second by Roscoe, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed, motion carries. Now to the,
what's that, Theta and Tamlin Clark Smith?
Yep.
Foundation.
yes,
So this was a really nice holiday surprise. We had a woman, an anonymous woman say, I want to give you $1,000 for holiday lights. And I'm gonna challenge my local foundation to match that. And what happened is the local foundation not only matched it, they gave us $5,000 instead of $1,000. So it was really gracious of them. We're grateful for that. Whenever we do get grants, though, we do have to bring it to the board because it does commit us to reporting and things of that nature.
So moved.
Second, and thank you.
question on this, does this mean this is additional funds that gets allocated to holiday lights, or this is?
I think it could go towards the funds we were planning to spend, can't it? I mean, you have a plan in place already.
Yeah, in my mind, they didn't give it to us to help us balance our budget. They said, I really love your lighting display. I want to support this and give you more. So this should be on top of what you're spending. You wouldn't cut your budget because, that's not what they give it to you. They give it to you
But
to
could
help
we-
enhance it, to
could
grow.
we decide to just cut, I don't know, $5,000 out of
Because
our
we
budget?
did increase the holiday light spend this year.
Right, we talked about cutting it at the last meeting and we left it. And then like the next day we got this and it was like, wow, what perfect timing, So, so we should be able to invest quite a bit and do some more lights that we've been hoping to get out there.
I guess I look at that as, if we set that precedent, nobody's gonna ever give us money for something like this again. It's like, okay, great, we just gave the village money just to go to the budget, they're just gonna see it disappear. They would like to see something for this, and I think that it's in our interest to do that.
Right.
I agree.
And I think we should all remember that later on, if we have the holiday lighting committee, and if the board approves that committee, and if they meet and come up with a plan, that we remember this foundation that gave us the money and send them pictures next year on what we used, a specific thing, what we used it for.
Make sure it's something that will be there for years to come, so it's not just something good.
Right.
There for the 1 year.
Okay, so there was a motion,
Second.
motion by,
I think it was,
Done. motion by Johnson, second was Lewis. Who was the second?
What did you say?
yeah, second.
Okay, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, motion carries. Accept Destination Door County Community Investment Fund.
Okay, so, in 2022, SBAA had approached the village about a new shuttle bus. And they actually contracted with somebody to write a grant, for a CMAQ grant, which is an air quality grant. They got some money, the village said we'd match it, life was great. COVID hit, bus prices went up. Came to find out we didn't have enough money. And so SBA's been trying to find the money. They did approach me about helping write a grant, so I did write the community investment grant. We did receive that, so we do want to accept that. We did find out this week, it's still not enough now. We're back to the drawing board, which we'll talk about next month. But for now, we'd like to accept this grant so we can at least move forward. We're almost there. We're so close to having everything. done. We
Julie, I
did
have a
think we had it.
question. The shuttle bus, is that just serving the transportation from the restaurants and the bars after, in the later evening and the hours, or is this a shuttle bus that elderly people can use to go to the pig or the clinic? Or during the day, is it available at all to the residents that can't drive or don't want to drive?
Well, because SBA operates this, I think it's only replacing the shuttle that was used just to go down 42. to
So
transfer people.
The goal is to grow it to do more for residents, workers, seniors, et cetera. And, you know, we talked about, you know, having it go to the Piggly Wiggly to make sure the elderly people can ride it. This new bus will be that you can get a wheelchair on it, so that's gonna help it, that
Make it
it's accessible. It will have bike racks on it ideally. Which is an added expense that we're looking at, but, that will help, you know, families that wanna maybe go out to the trails or something like that, so. It has a reputation for being heavily used by tourists to go to the restaurants and bars. The old one did, and I believe that SBA is really trying to make a conscious effort to make sure it's a model that can be used as, transportation throughout the village, to help improve, reduce the congestion, reduce the parking.
And I think they're also having conversations, don't let me put words in your mouth, Denise, with our surrounding communities, trying to get a larger route, whether it's Ephraim or Bailey's Harbor, or Gibraltar, or Liberty Grove. I mean, the end goal is to have multiple buses in Northern Door,
To connect.
correct?
Yeah, and ideally we want to connect a route, so whether we connect to Bailey's Harbor or maybe from or even Fish Creek. Ideally, that's, you know, then that would require 3 buses, we have 1, and then the other municipality would invest in 1, and then you need another one in order to make the headway, which is how long it takes you to get from spot to spot, in half an hour or less. And we've been talking to those municipalities since 2018. So I think there's more and more interest in that kind of transportation now than there was in 2018 and 2019. It gets good because of the conversation about multimodal transportation. So that would include walking or driving or biking or anything, you know, and so it's also meant to alleviate parking issues in the village. So we do a calculation that tells us how many parking spaces that we open up. We also carry J1s in our drive, and so when we can, that shift work, that's a little bit more difficult. We certainly carry J1s and residents. We did run in 2019, when we established the bus, we had a day route. And the ridership was minimal. Almost no one rode it during the day. And so whether we didn't do a good enough job, you know, letting people know that, hey, you can ride, we started at 11 in the morning. And it went from 11 in the morning until 2 in the morning. And we tried it for several months, and we didn't have any ridership during the day. Now, you know, things have shifted, things have changed, but, and so we could do a better job, certainly, you know, we did before, in encouraging whether it's a visitor or a resident to get a ride to the pig. And now we have the medical center, because, you know, the residents at Scandia can't get a ride to the medical center that's a block away, because Scan won't take it. So, I mean, there's a possibility, but that's a whole different ballgame. They got new orders coming in, what happens there. So, ideally, yes, you're right, one way of telling you that we need a public transportation system in Northern Door. Because anything we have right now is on demand. If you want to get anything, you have to call 24 hours in advance for a door-to-door to come and pick you up.
Yeah, and I would just, to everybody, that I would just be so cautious of writing more checks that we can cash when it comes to how much this one bus can do in a community our size for all the needs. Yeah, just logistical scheduling of a bus to take seniors to where they need to be, and then it almost isn't workable with one bus. So I wrote down public transportation task force. I mean, maybe it's kind of a time to start thinking about what that looks like the next few years. Because otherwise, there's gonna be a lot of people asking permission to use the bus for their thing, and we're gonna be like,
Well, and that was what was important about getting a new bus in the first place, was because the other bus we had wasn't reliable enough to commit to doing, offering services that if it, you know, if it wasn't gonna be running, then we wouldn't be able to fulfill it. So that's right.
So we do want to accept that grant. I
Yeah,
do
for
have a
sure.
note in here that staff does recommend an operating agreement with SBA. So, you know, in the upcoming months, you know, before that bus actually arrives, I'd want to sit down with Louise and work something out to make sure, you know, what if the bus is hit, you know, or who's hiring, firing, that type of thing. So just those things associated to make sure we don't have issues in the future. Not that we have, I just want to.
So moved.
Second by Roscoe, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Governmental agreement with Door County Highway Department.
Sure, this is really Dan's, and I know he's here, but I'm just gonna keep going. Every year, Dan.
It's standard agreement that we sign every year for getting this roads plowed, getting additional work done, roadside work, any additional work that we can't do, the county will assist us with.
Is there any change on this from previous years, Dan?
Nope, the only thing on there on the bottom where the check marks is Door County stopped striping, and that we contract with Kewanee County, but it's minimal amount that it's, you know, we're talking hundreds of dollars. It's very minimal.
Second.
Motion by Roscoe, second by Cox, all those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Discussion on creating a parking task force.
That one is yours, Nate.
So this is something that came from Parks, something that I have had a lot of feelings for a long time about. And I think what I envisioned is first, talking about possibility of paid parking, and then beyond that, there's other issues that the village faces for parking. And I would like to go out there, get community engagement on that, see what the community feels about it to make this task force. And then figure out what we want to do and have them, have that group come back with findings, say, look, this is what we think we can do, this is what community will support, this is what we think makes sense. So it's gonna be something that's gonna report back to the board.
I guess.
I guess the question I would have is really, if we do want to do it, then who makes it?
Only one thing that came out of Parks was there were two of us against it, and I think we thought by just creating this task force, we would be pushing parking meters.
No, not, I think what I understood from this was that this, parking task force would do what Nate just described, is to get us that information on what the needs are. Park meters was something that was brought up, but it could be something else. You know, it could go a different direction. That's what I thought.
They're just gonna do all the
They're
homework.
just, exactly.
And
All the
see
research.
what other communities are doing,
And
and
What our
report
needs
back
are.
to us. Or
that's
probably
basically what the
Parks
task
and then.
force is for.
to the
I guess
I
I,
would think.
I'd want it to come, I mean, I guess it should go to Parks, but I also want to make sure that whatever the findings are, come back. But even if Parks may not like that, I still would like. But yeah, that would make sense.
And that's why I still wanted it on the board agenda, even though Parks was split.
Sure.
Because I thought the board then needed to decide on the creation of this. And if we do, I know, Dick Burris might very well be interested in being on this. He and his wife took 3 weeks and went up to Canada. And the day after he got back, he came and talked to me about all of their parking rules and how well it worked and parking. And so just as a wealth of information of what he has found, and I think I had also told Julie that Mike DeUlio, out in Colorado, used to be in charge of public transportation out there. He has gone back now to Colorado for the winter. I don't know if he would be interested in zooming in and sharing some of his expertise, but I think they're both fabulous people that we could tap into for their experience and information.
Anytime you can tap Dick Burris. knowledge, I'm happy to. do.
And I think that's where we were thinking if we had people who were very pro parking meter, maybe they'd come back with a pro parking meter stance, whereas one of the other committee members was newer to the community, and he said he thought it was so welcoming when he got here and saw that there were no parking meters. He thought that was a great thing. And I was looking up some smaller communities who had installed parking meters and they were losing money. It cost the taxpayers money. I was thinking if Sister Bay was the only town to do parking meters, what are the other communities gonna do? Or if I drive to Bailey's Harbor, I don't wanna, even if we got passes for our own parking meters, I don't wanna pay for parking in Bailey's Harbor. I don't want to pay for parking in Fish Creek. I don't want to start a precedent. So
But you know what?
a couple of us were just thinking that if we start this parking meter task force, which it kind of seemed like that we were pushing parking meters as like, this is where we want to go.
It's parking task force, so it's not specifically just to see if we want or need parking meters or not. I think if they're gonna explore other options, like they're gonna do the research. And maybe parking meters is not the way to go. I really don't love the idea of parking meters either, but there might be, you know, based on the information we get from them.
And, right, and I don't know that it's about whether we want to pay in another community, if that's the route Sister Bay goes and that's a trend and then everybody wants to do it. It's not about necessarily our personal opinion about whether we like them or not, but what's the best for Sister Bay? I don't know if it is or isn't, because nobody has done the research and presented anything to us.
We're only assuming.
Some of the
It's one of the things I think that came up that we would want that task force
I
to
think
look
we need to
into.
go forward and get a task force for the parking. There's some communities like in Charleston, South Carolina, there's no parking meters. There's a parking lot. And then you do something with your phone and then you pay and then.
Well, I mean, paid parking. I don't
Yeah.
mean
Yeah,
parking meters.
Paid
I mean
parking.
paid parking.
but yeah, you can't go up to very many places in this country, tourist places, and park for free. It's expensive. It's
Yeah, I like.
because it's so
parking for free.
limited.
So do we have general consensus that we want to do this? Then my next question is, what do we want the composition of that to be? Who do we want out of this? I feel it's important to involve the business community in Sister Bay. Because they're gonna get impacted by it. And I really want to be involved in this, because I've said, I say it somewhat tongue in cheek, but I do have a lot of feelings and I've done a lot of research and gathered up a lot of knowledge on parking. So who else, who do we want? I think it's important to have somebody from Parks, somebody from Plan. And then I'm not sure how many more people we want and if we want to constrain ourselves. Personally, I would.
I don't think you want it too big that it's cumbersome. I would say definitely not more than 7, preferably 5, from my experience on the task force. If you would find a couple business owners in the community that would be interested, I think that would be great.
And what about downtown residents, people that have to live amongst them? Yeah.
I guess I would like to be as general as possible with the formation and just say there's 5 people. And then we still have to approve those people, so it's not like we can just have anybody on there, but 5 people make sense to me because I do know what you're saying about getting people to show up. Yeah, everybody has commitments. The bigger the group, the more difficult that is. So just 5 people sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, if you find more and it's 6 people, they're only making recommendations, so it doesn't matter that it would be an even amount,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this a paid committee? We, per our bylaw, task force are not.
Okay. I don't think that that's that important one way or the other.
So 5, you said 5 people.
Yeah. I'll come back in December with the people and anybody on the board that wants to be a part of it. Absolutely, let me know.
Just real quick, before you do any appointments, you do have to amend the bylaws to actually create the task force.
So
So we need that resolution to come forward and amend the bylaws. the committee bylaws and your operational bylaws, and then make the appointments. I mean, you can do them all at the same meeting.
Okay, so then we could do that and we could get that for December, potentially.
We can have that.
Do we need an action for it?
We could do general consensus on that.
General consensus, because we're not appointing or making that decision.
Then on to the holiday lighting task force.
Can I make a quick comment and recommendation?
Yes, please.
It's a really interesting book and there's a lot of studies about the case to be made for paid parking. And there's a lot of, especially recently, and I'm happy to share it with, maybe you can share it with the rest of you, but there's a book that someone that, you can say, an urban planner and a professor at UCLA wrote called, the case for, hold on, I can't.
The high price of free parking.
The high cost of free
Oh,
parking.
That's a 600-page book. I think I have that.
Do the cliff notes. But the other thing that I would encourage the board to look at would be, because in it, he also discusses reducing parking requirements for businesses and developments in downtown districts. And I know we talked about fee in lieu of, but there's a correlation that he makes with that. So kind of interesting, right? 'Cause
Well, that's been on hold. We were supposed to be for 10 years. We've supposed, and I worked on it for multiple years and I got tired of doing it.
They sort of go hand in hand, I think, and I think the question is, yes, like you're gonna, but then you're requiring your businesses to, do you know what I mean? So should they have to, no, so they're free and they have to make, so is it really necessary? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a bit, I just would, yes, it's a big one, it is, but I do think that there's a lot of case studies that are short and that would really support, Allison, I understand what you're saying, that would really support the logic behind it. You know, I do, I think it would be.
I'd take a look at that and read it, because what I wrote down was, you mentioned, urban environments, we're not an urban environment, certainly, and there's case studies for small rural,
Right, there are-
small villages, that's a different thing, but we're certainly not an urban environment, we're certainly not a large city or even town. And we're busy 3 months of the year, or 9 months of the year, there's
Yeah.
ample parking here.
Yes.
So we have a 3-month
Transportation.
issue to solve, which is why we have consensus, which is wonderful, but I don't support the task force of parking. I didn't say anything. It's no big deal if I do or not. We have consensus, fine. But I think this is something that, I don't know that a task force, or I certainly don't think paid parking is in our best interest, but we're pretty unique. We are very, very remote, very rural. It gets busy a couple months a year, and then we have an issue, and I'll talk about it. And I think those few months when people come here, if they got to a place where they had to pay to park, they would go somewhere else, and so that's sad for everybody, so.
This Friday.
That's all.
This Friday is the epitome of parking issues the America faces. Black Friday. There's so incredibly much parking. There's a lot of Donald Trump. Actually, he was on the podcast with Miles.
Yeah,
Well, the podcast here.
You're picking the day after Thanksgiving to prove a point about the rest of the year. I don't
I'm saying-
think that argument really holds. I'll give you 370 other days we could talk about that. I mean, if you really want to.
But I guess what I'm saying is,
I appreciate.
you're talking about there, but the same sort of logic applies I'm kind of agreeing with your point, Don, that you got an issue for 3 months, but then you have to make it through those 3 months.
Yeah, of course.
So
And we
anyway,
have, and we
let's-
have,
let's-
and we
let's-
have, as we've gotten busier, we still have. It's uncomfortable, but we still have.
So-
Right.
And in an urban environment, you have public transportation, which we don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back to the.
buses and shuttles. Okay, on to holiday lighting.
So this was my request. I don't think, our Parks Committee, should, not that we couldn't be involved in it or do it ourselves. But I think, once again, tapping into the community and people that may have an interest in it. And coming up with how do we move forward in the village? What is our plan? It's kind of, left up to staff and what they decide to purchase and where they place it, and we gave them quite a bit of direction at Parks. Some of our personal thoughts on what should be addressed, but I think we need to know, what do we want to look like? What is our vision, and how do we slowly get to that? And I think another group of 5 people could come up with a plan and present it to Parks, and we could adopt it, amend it, adjust it, whatever. But I think we need to know what we really want to do. And just Lily, I thought at our last meeting brought up something. She's like, I envision like Whoville, you know, and I thought, for the lack of, you know, anything else, I could see that. I know what that looks like in my head, you know. Our Parks Director wanted to be the Griswolds. I don't think that's our brand. So I think we need to define who we are, what we want to be, how we want to grow it.
Well, and just establish and give that like orientations is what we want, instead of having to figure out every single year. And maybe it would even cut costs too, right? Every year trying to figure out, okay, we're gonna do it this way this year, but we need to buy so many more lights for whatever decorations. But if we have something that, whether there's a task force or not, but you know, this is what we want, this is what we want it to look like, and just replicate it every year.
I just have to make a comment. So, you know, at first I wasn't too keen on the idea, because I know staff feels very micromanaged on this subject. And it's like, when you have numbers change, you kind of get pulled in different directions. I know Eric, he doesn't support it looking like the Griswolds, but he said that's kind of what it feels like to him, because we have such a hodgepodge going. And so I do think we need that vision, where I think you need a separate group of people to sit back and say, what is the vision? What do we want to be? Do we want white lights? Do we want, you know, because right now, over a number of years, we have created a mass of varying decorations, and it is very hodgepodge. And I'm afraid that it is gonna start detracting from the beauty of the village. So I do support that. You need somebody to step back, somebody who's not so into it, and say, what do we want? I mean, you just saw we got a grant from a woman who really has nothing to do with these lights, who's just saying, I love it, you know, you do such a good job with it. So there's people out there that appreciate it. Let's not ruin it. And I think we're to the point where, yeah, we need somebody to step back that's not so close to it, that can say, yeah, all your out ones look terrible, or we don't like that anymore, or whatever it is.
So I like it.
This task force actually existed in the past, it just never met. I was on it for 5 years with 0 meetings. The other directive I would say, and this is something I mentioned to you last night, Denise, is I really think that we have a lot of consumable decorations, and we need to try and make it so we're not getting rid of this stuff. We need to have it so it's long lasting, so we're not just consuming and creating more plastic waste.
And accumulating, and yeah, so that's why.
I think we all like this idea.
And you
Maybe
think
it's
5?
like-
I guess I had a smaller number in my head, but if you think 5, then
I think that.
Oh, I would not go smaller.
okay,
I have no decorating sense at all, so I'm not gonna be on it, but I love the idea.
I wouldn't put you there down anyway.
Maybe the donor would like to be on.
Right,
They don't live here.
Oh,
From Monash.
that's not too far.
That, I mean, we get to set the bylaws on that, we don't necessarily need to. Okay, well, let's start with 5, and we can always amend that if
Sure.
Yeah.
we need to. Correct. Okay, under appointments. Julie, did you hear back from the Dan?
No, I did not.
Okay, so we have one person out of the village. Dave Schmitz is no longer on the planning commission. We will miss him. And Forrest was not able to make the commitment to the library committee, so that is open. Liberty Grove had said, well, what about Vivian? I didn't have time to reach out to Vivian, Julie did, and I think she'd be perfectly fine, but I want to hear from her before I make an appointment, so that's just letting everybody know that we have those two vacancies out there. I think we probably should advertise for them and see who we can get.
So are you gonna advertise for library, or you wanna move forward with Vivian?
I think I'm not gonna make the recommendation, and if she wants to do it and she accepts it, she's been on there before, I think she'd be a good fit.
Okay. Well, I have, in the world that we live in right now, I would have one question.
Okay.
I know that she was on there before, but she was on there before as a village trustee. And I would ask this of anybody that the village would be appointing to that committee. And whether or not they believe in good thing.
Okay. That is a fair question.
Great question.
So there's nothing at this time.
The library commission does want us to act on this pretty quickly because they were not able to have them, so.
Okay.
They don't want us to wait on this anymore.
There's somebody out there that wants to speak? Okay. On to K. Board training.
Okay, so, last year, as it says, last year we had the Wisconsin municipality here to do training. We also talked about the need for NIMS training. Not many of you actually follow through with that NIMS training yet, but we're waiting. So the question is, what do we want to have training for this time? Some ideas I heard were public hearings, you know, what is proper in a public hearing? Or, what can I talk about with a member when I'm not at it, and that type of stuff. So it's up to you guys. If you don't want training, you don't have to do it. But I think growth is always good, and take advantage of it while you can, just become better leaders.
So this is something the league could come up for, or what is?
It depends what you ask, it'd be the league or Randy.
So as a observer of the board and more meetings than probably anybody sits in, what do you think we need additional training on? In other words, what are our strengths and weaknesses? It's your turn, go.
Walking quorums.
Okay. There.
You know, what's legal, what's not.
Yeah.
We always want to make sure that the public has their trust in us. We don't want them to be like, oh, they're talking about things behind the scenes or something like that. You know, there's so much perception versus what's really happening out there. And I think we need to address that and make sure, no, we know you think that, but we know that we can't do that type of thing. Because there are some gray areas. You know, you can talk about some things. You can't talk about how you're gonna vote on the thing, you know, so that's, people see two people talking and right away they assume you're having an illegal meeting. That's not true. So.
It's good.
I wouldn't mind more finance training. Or like debt levy and all this stuff.
Understanding budgets and investments and stuff.
Municipal finance, I think is really, because I mean, it's also different than looking at another P&L ledger.
And Heidi, did you say that you could schedule a NIMS for the board?
You want it as a group, correct? Yeah, we can get that scheduled.
And what is NIMS?
The National Incident Management Services Systems. It's a safety training. There's 2 courses that are recommended by Chief Hecht here at the fire station.
Well, I think also required.
Yes, they're required of the board per your bylaws, but there's 7 courses in total, but Chief Hecht recommends 2.
Right.
Which is 100 and
700, I believe.
What happened is we agreed that we were gonna have a big class session to make sure everybody did it and everybody could hear the same questions that are being asked. But then the emergency management director who was gonna set that up left. And so that kind of put the whole thing on pause. But I'm told they just appointed somebody, so we might have that opportunity again.
That answer your questions or?
Yep, so Tasha and I'll work and see what we can find on municipal finance, and we'll work on the NIMS training.
I think something else that might be helpful is for us to submit questions, or this might just be Randy coming in to talk to us at some point, or I don't want to bring him up here just for that, but sometime when he's here, if we just have a talk to him, that might just ask questions.
Sure. I think as long as people know that we can get help, just keep it in mind, if you have a question, schedule it.
Actual-
I think, is there some kind of summary that can talk about the obligations that the board has as an elected trustee?
Yes, there's handbooks. I'm not sure if we hand them out or not. There's actually some municipality that has, I see Tasha's hand is up, but there's also some municipalities that have job descriptions to be a trustee, which talks about that, and so people understand what they're getting into when they sign up to be a trustee.
Does your training, do you require your training to be in person, or would, virtual training work for you? Because, we have a portal through the league, and you all have email addresses, all I have to do is provide you with the link, just like we provide the employees with the link and complete the training online. It's tested, so you have to pay attention, so.
I guess my suggestion on that would be like, let's use that portal, and then maybe we can have a follow-up and ask you questions after we've gone through it, so we're making effective use of your time, and that if there's something we're not understanding.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that training on there is for trustees as well.
I smile because I have a question. Heidi, when we had the border review training, how many people actually did it? 2? How many actually did the NIMS?
No.
So when we leave, I hate to say it, but everybody has such busy schedules.
Yeah.
That a lot of these are offered in summer, and when we leave it up to do it individually, I think it's harder. Versus when they're in a group and they can actually hear what the other person is asking, the questions they're asking, and kind of learn from it. I think, in my opinion, I think it's more effective as a group. It's up to you guys though, the trustees.
I mean, that doesn't mean that it still couldn't be online on the big screen, right? And
Sure, but I mean,
we're
yeah.
all in a room.
Yeah.
That's what we did for Board of Review. We watched it on the screen, but we were sitting there, taking it together.
See what's available.
I really like and it wouldn't necessarily have to be a top priority, but I've never heard that before, that other communities actually have job descriptions that talk about what your obligations are, what is expected of you when you put your name on a ballot and you win.
Did we get some papers? Did we get something?
You got a little pamphlet after the election, but then you should have each gotten, that municipal handbook
A big
from,
handbook,
yeah, from the league, that big thick book.
I will say, we also sent out in May, every May, there's board 101 training offered through the league, and you can attend that. That's an in-person training. The village would pay for that, and that would go through what's expected of a municipal official.
But is that a possibility when there's
So come
slow
up.
time about doing a job description?
Yeah, definitely. To me, it's a winter project, our training, because everybody just is too busy during the summer. I mean, look at all of you, look at your jobs, what you have. So we have to find something that's in winter. We'll do that. We'll work on it.
Okay, anything else? About the financial report. We'll make the motion, we pay the bills.
Second?
You get the amount there. You lost that.
$541,561.41.
That's, yes. The motion by Bell, second by Warren, discussion?
Dan, is he still with us?
Yes.
I had a question for Tasha today, and she didn't know the answer. we spent almost $1,000 on street flags and hardware. Was that for new American flags? Downtown where our other ones torn and tattered?
I would have to defer that to Eric. I know we did purchase some more flags and we went through and replaced them all before Fall Fest. And some of the mast and the smaller flags that we had downtown also, we had a few that we had to replace.
I can answer that. I followed up with an email back to you on the ones that I needed to check on. But the flags, were American flags. The last time we purchased a bulk order of American flags like that was in 2021. So about 2 years, they expect them to last. These flags, Eric said he feels like they're of good quality so that they will not fade right away or will not rip right away. The reason they do rip or is if they get caught on the light posts. And
Right,
that
which you
happens.
see often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens.
Okay.
So.
All right, sorry, I didn't see the email.
No, that's okay. I just, I did follow up to you.
Okay.
Just a question,
Okay.
flags are made in the United States and they're not from overseas?
I don't know where you,
I
I
think
don't know
they
where you purchased
should
them
be
from. I would have to
purchased-
look back at the
It
invoice
should
again.
be purchased from the United States.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yep, we can look at that.
Most of them are not.
Right.
More discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? They will pay the bills. Staff reports.
Well, in here, just if anybody has questions, Dan and I are here for you.
Another question for Dan, under Parks. Repairs to the damaged power service at the visitors center were delayed due to rain. Did you get to finish that?
We are just about, I got outlets put in for the new Christmas lights. We've got one short section of wire we need to replace, but I want to get a hold of Mike. I talked to him today, next week. We're gonna get down there. I want to snap in one more breaker to give us a little bit additional amperage. So it's not quite complete, but we've gotten 3 new plugins installed. So we're more than halfway there.
Awesome, thank you.
There's no questions on the committee reports. Local bylaws.
Janelle's been going to coastal byways and she said they're just still working on the plumbing book.
Emergency management plan that maybe we'll meet again since there's.
Well, now that they've hired somebody, right?
I just heard it on the news this week. They haven't told us yet, but I did hear it on the radio.
And I guess that person had their time getting situated in the new job before we ask him to start. Yeah.
I think we should push them to do something before the end of March. Because otherwise, my availability here really gets decreased. I understand he's gonna be busy, but that's also why I say the end of March and not the end of this month. So let's see if we can, and if we can. he's
Right,
busy.
after the first of the year, let's make a contact and.
Fire board?
I don't think we met. We haven't met. And Stacy's gone. I don't know. Is Stacy gone?
Stacy, moved.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Have enough green here? That's it.
They haven't met, Sarah. I think it's been about 2 or 3 months.
Historical Society?
Sure, they always meet. First thing that happened, John Nelson had to step down from as a board member because of a conflict of interest. He's their marketing person. And because of insurance reasons, they want to insure the board. He had to step down as a board member. They have 40 vendors signed up for the Kindle market, which is starting the day after Thanksgiving. There's 2 food trucks that are going to be new this year. There was a problem with a mystery person unplugged the dehumidifier. And the heat in the Anderson house, which causes harm to the artifacts and the fabrics and upholstered furniture, and mold is happening on vintage clothing because of this. So they're trying to fix that problem. One issue they are struggling with is they are not handicap accessible at the Christmas market. They did receive a $2,500 donation for the music at the market, and the Peach Barn is the official beer. 10,000 people attended the market last year. Copus and bus lines are going to be serving as a shuttle bus this year. And there was a $10,000 donation from Nicolay Bank for the market as well.
Okay. Library committee has not met. Marina committee? Marina committee?
Yeah, I wasn't at the last one, and I think what I brought up earlier was the primary thing that was discussed. They did talk about two roles, assistant, marina manager. We're gonna review that job description and personnel to finalize it. That was at least in the notes, and then the technician, there was an approval for that. So.
Ad hoc outdoor rec. Transportation plan, that has got the meeting on. Is that the December 11th? That is going over the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. I would encourage anybody that's able to attend to that to attend. Yeah, that's all going on there. Parks.
There's no minutes in here for parks.
They weren't done yet, done.
Don't ask me to try to remember.
We talked about the Christmas lights and the
We got the
Christmas
Christmas lights taken
card.
care of, so
All
yeah,
the Christmas,
perfect.
I mean,
45 minutes of Christmas.
Christmas lights.
How many meetings ago was it?
And they came from the snowmobile club with their,
I mean, if there was something really important,
Yes.
I'm sure I would have remembered, but I think it was
That
just
was
pretty.
There's so much on those agendas, but I just can't remember right now.
yeah, all I remember is the.
So it'll be in next month's minute.
Personnel has not met. Plan,
Any questions on?
Oh, I remember now from, we were gonna recommend to the board, the amount we want to support the ice rink committee.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't on the agenda.
It wasn't,
No, on our agenda tonight, you're
yeah.
correct.
but we did, I think we came up with the amount of 500,000 to help fund the ice rink.
Yeah.
We were gonna bring that to the board,
Oh, finance,
sorry.
Okay.
To finance.
and let finance
Finance.
figure it out in the CIP.
That was, I think that was pretty much the highlight of that meeting was.
I think that,
discussion.
Yeah,
of
Tasha
ice
just
rink.
smiled.
she did, because her and I talked, and she's like, where am I gonna get that from? So,
We're not gonna ask you to do a whole bunch of homework. We can talk about it at
I
finance.
forgot my magic wand somewhere.
okay. So, plan we saw tonight. Any other questions on that? SBA. Okay, well, there was the annual meeting. I was,
We had the annual meeting, yep,
Yep.
great.
Lily and I were there. It was,
Oh, yeah, that meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah, it was great. The fire department has a wonderful documentary that they're working on that should be out. I'm not sure when exactly they're gonna release it, but it's about the history of the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department. It's really well done.
that was presented at the historical society, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we showed it, we didn't
It
show
was
it,
nice.
we showed the, a trailer for it.
Mhm.
yeah, Chris spoke, it was interesting. Tourism zone.
So I did not go to the last meeting because I had a trail meeting, because I'm part of joined a group that's doing a countywide network for trails, to see how we fit in with that, but the minutes are in the back.
Did you get to go, Luis?
Yeah, I attended, there was not a lot of discussion about, DDC made their usual marketing over, their overview and year-to-date performance. They did discuss in a little bit more detail room tax collections and did projections for the rest of the year for the county. But there were some concerns that they, they were down to last year. It looks like they may end up flat, maybe.
But Sister Bay is still projected
11%.
11%.
Yeah, we're the only community that's, I think there's a couple that are flat or up single digit. But we've been up, I'm surprised, I really thought that our trend is going down. So at one point, we were up like 15%. Then as the months have continued, the trend's gone down a bit, but I think there's still a good chance we'll finish up 10. So our share will increase half a point, something like that. So anyway, talk about that. The BDC will present their budget at the next tourism zone meeting, and that's a meeting that most people attend in person, and because this one was Zoom, because BCTZ is the final word on whether that budget is approved or not. So we talked briefly about that, but didn't see the budget. And then talk a little bit about Ephraim, and Ephraim really quickly had some concerns about the community investment fund and how it was being managed, not who, but how. And so I'm not aware of the details, but Julie did say that Julie Gilbert said that they had been in talks with Ephraim, meaning that attorneys are. Then I think they've come up with an agreeable solution. So that community investment fund continues, and it continues to be managed by the Door County Community Foundation. So we'll, I guess, know about that in another month or so.
Thank you. Utility committee.
They was sending out the wipe, trying to get people not to flush wipes, so sending out various notices to businesses and the utilities bill. I think there were various different notices being sent to people to not flush wipes. That's kind of our biggest thing.
Yeah, it was less than a half-hour meeting, I think.
I was going to join, but then my espresso machine stopped working. I had to fix it.
Village Hall Planning Task Force.
We're still waiting for the architect to show us his initial plans. I think in December we'll receive something. That's the plan.
Who's that from?
Can't remember the gentleman's name.
Henry Isaacson.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great.
He's in Arizona, I believe, working on
You've done another one.
it.
Okay, then I believe a motion to accept the committee reports should be in order. Motion by Roscoe,
Second.
second by Champo. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay, and we're down to executive session. So let's go into executive session and I'll take a 5-minute recess. So, I need a motion. Motion by Rose. Second by Cox. Roll call vote. Ella, yes.
Campo, yes.
Berto, yes.
Warner, yes.
Orozco, yes.
Cox.